Hello, everyone. I received a private message a few days ago asking that I comment on John 20, verse 28. And that verse, of course, is often used by Trinitarians and those who believe that Jesus is God as one of their proof texts. And that verse, of course, is where Thomas saw the resurrected Christ and he exclaimed, "My Lord and my God." So there you have it. Jesus is God. And the reasoning is, well, if Jesus had not been God, then he would have surely corrected Thomas. Okay, well, I always encourage people to consider the context, not just the immediate context of a particular verse, but the overall context of the entire Bible. But before I get into that, I would like to say that most people are unaware, really, of the power and extent and the intent of Satan the devil to mislead us. A lot of people don't even believe he exists, but even Christians, are unaware of the power that he has. Revelation, the 12th chapter, though, says that Satan the devil, the one misleading the entire world. That's a lot of people. The Apostle Paul said that Satan is the god of this system and that he blinds the minds of the unbelievers. Well, you might say, no, I'm not an unbeliever. I believe Jesus is God. How can I be Well, you do not appreciate the devil's intent. The devil, obviously, he cannot stamp out Christianity. He's not that powerful. But from the very beginning, he has sought to twist and distort the truth. One method that Satan has used is to push Jehovah out of the picture, and that's his intent, obviously. And he's done that by overreaching Bible translators who have removed the distinctive personal name of God from the Bible, so that people, for the most part, are either unacquainted with what God's name is or they don't think it's important. And that's really what the Bible translators believe. They even say on the foreword of their Bibles that they've not translated YHWH in any way that would, resemble God's personal name, but they've substituted Lord and God because they don't think the personal name of God is all that important, even though it appeared in the Bible almost 7,000 times. So they've pushed Jehovah out, and Satan has promoted Jesus to the place of God. And that distorts the entire message of the Bible. Because the Bible message really is very clear that God gave his throne to his Son. In fact, God invites the Son, "Ask of me that I may give nations as your inheritance." Reason on that. Does God ask himself to become God, and God bestows godship upon himself? Doesn't make much sense, does it? So I just wanted I'll comment on this verse, but I wanted to make mention of the fact that we're dealing with a powerful deceptive force. And if we cling to this verse or that verse and allow ourselves to be convinced of this or that, we're going to be deceived. And Jesus himself said that most people, the many who claim to believe in him, are deceived. Sermon on the Mount. Many will say to me in that day, "Lord, Lord." So they recognize him as Lord. "Did we not prophesy in your name and expel demons in your name and do many powerful works in your name?" The name of Jesus. And Jesus will say to them, "I never knew you. Get away from me, you workers of lawlessness." So Jesus didn't condemn them for being immoral or unbelievers. He said he never knew them. And here they were claiming, "We've been doing all this work in your name." Churchgoers, Christians. What's wrong? Why will Jesus condemn the many? And in that same sermon, Jesus said, broad and spacious is the road leading off to death, narrow and cramped the road leading off to life, and few are the ones finding it. Many are on the broad road. Most people believe in this Trinity, right? So think about it. Okay, so here, Jesus has been put to death, and then he makes an appearance. And the first person that he appeared to, it's in the 20th chapter there of of John, was Mary. And when Jesus appeared, he always appeared in different bodies. He never looked like he did when he was a man. He was resurrected as a spirit, but spirits have the ability to materialize flesh. So Christ materialized flesh so he could convince them that he was resurrected. And here Mary thought he was the gardener. And she asked him, where have you lain my Lord? Just tell me, I'll go get him. And then Jesus said something in a way, and she recognized it was Jesus. He said, Mary. And she said, Rabboni, teacher. And then it's interesting. And this is key to understanding what Thomas was talking about. Jesus told Mary, stop clinging to me, for I have not yet ascended to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God. So get that in your mind. Jesus has a God, the same God that the disciples worship. It's the exact same relationship, really. That's why Jesus said, go tell my brothers. So if Jesus has brothers, that means that they're sons of God, just as Jesus is a son of God. So a few days later, Jesus appeared again to his disciples, not just Mary. And they were in a room with the doors locked, and Jesus appeared, walked through the door, through the wall, whatever. But Thomas was not there. And when the disciples told him that they had seen the Lord, they used that expression, we've seen the Lord. They didn't say we've seen God. Interesting point. Thomas declared that he would by no means believe that Jesus had been resurrected unless he personally could touch the wounds in his hands and on his side where he'd been pierced. So a few days later, same situation. The disciples were in a house with the doors locked because they were afraid of the Jews, because they'd just seen what had just happened to Jesus. And Jesus appeared again. And he told Thomas, come, put your hand in my flesh, my side, and my hand. Stop being unbelieving, but become believing. So not only did Jesus miraculously appear, walking through the walls again, but he also let Thomas know that he had heard what he had said, that he would by no means believe unless he could see these wound marks. So Jesus produced the wound marks and told him to stop being unbelieving. And it was at that point that Thomas declared Jesus to be my Lord and my God. Although Jesus had performed miracles before, raising the dead, even walking on water and healing all manner of illness, he had not walked through walls. And so Thomas knew that Jesus was not human. He knew that he was a superhuman, just manifesting himself in the flesh. So it was proper for him to refer to Jesus as his Lord and God, because in the spirit realm, Jesus was a God before he became human, and he surely is a God now. So that's why Jesus didn't correct him. And in fact, if you read on, John was in the room when this took place. And verse 30, it says, to be sure, Jesus performed many other signs also before the disciples, which are not written down in this scroll. But these have been written down for the purpose that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that because of believing you may have life by means of his name. So what's the point? The purpose is that we believe that Jesus is the Son of God. Now, I know in the minds of Trinitarians that words Father, Son, they don't have a lot of meaning. I had an exchange with a young man on one of my video comments, and he said that the reason God referred to himself as Father and Son, he was role playing. So, in the minds of Trinitarians, I'm not saying all of them believe that, but it certainly is inexplicable. Over and over, Jesus referred to God as his Father and that he is God's Son. But in the minds of Trinitarians, that's not really relevant. Jesus doesn't really have a father. He's always existed. So they're playing this charade, playing a part. Why it's, again, inexplicable. If Jesus is God, why didn't he just say it? I'm God. Well, he never said that, did he? And Trinitarians go to great lengths to try to stitch these things together to uphold their belief, but it doesn't make any sense. It does not make a lick of sense. So the purpose of this being written down is that we can believe that Jesus is the Son of God. And Jehovah is Jesus' Father. Fathers give life to sons. Jesus is the firstborn of all creation. Oh, but firstborn doesn't mean firstborn. It simply means that he's the most prominent. Well, that would be a very awkward and silly way for God to refer to himself, wouldn't it? I'm the most prominent of what? Yeah, well, there you go. I hope that answers some questions. Might raise more than it answers, but I'm here, and if you have questions, I'll be happy to consider them.